The grand chamber floated in the darkness of space, a massive ring of metal and glass orbiting the brilliant neutron star called Prime. Inside, representatives from 50 different alien species sat in their designated seats, talking and arguing as they always did. The chamber was 200 years old, built when the Galactic Council first formed. Humans had helped build it. Humans had maintained it ever since. Captain Jin stood near the human section, his military uniform crisp and clean. He held a data pad in his hands, waiting for his turn to speak. Beside him sat Ambassador, the chief representative of humanity. She looked calm, but Jin knew her well enough to see the tension in her shoulders. This was the 847th Council session, and it was not going well. At the center of the chamber, Chairman raised one of his four arms. The leader was tall, with purple skin that shimmered under the lights. His species was old, he often reminded everyone. Very old. They had been traveling through space when humans still lived in caves. He believed this made him wise. Jin thought it just made him arrogant. "We must expand into the void sector," announced, his voice booming through the chamber. "Rich resources wait there, new worlds to claim. The Council grows stronger with each system we control." Jin stepped forward. "Chairman, I must object. My military intelligence teams have surveyed that region. It's dangerous. We've detected unusual energy readings and signs of hostile entities. I strongly recommend we avoid the void sector until we understand what's there." Several council members laughed. The sound echoed through the chamber like cruel music. Jin's jaw tightened, but he remained professional. He had dealt with this disrespect for years. Waved his hand dismissively. "Captain, your concerns are noted, but humans are soldiers and mechanics. You fix our machines and fight our battles. Leave the important decisions to species with more experience in galactic matters." The chamber fell silent. Jin looked at Ambassador. Her face had gone very still, like ice forming on a lake. He knew that look. He had seen it before, but never quite this cold. Dr. Lee, sitting in the row behind them, leaned forward and whispered, "Don't," but was already standing. She moved to the speaker's platform with slow, deliberate steps. Every eye in the chamber watched her. The ambassador was not a tall woman, but something in her presence made her seem larger than the aliens around her. "Chairman," she said, her voice perfectly calm, "you're absolutely right. Humans are adequate mechanics and soldiers. For 2 centuries, we have repaired your FTL relay network when none of you could understand the technology. We have solved engineering problems your best scientists declared impossible. We have defended your outer territories from pirates and invaders. We have shared our medical advances, our research, our innovations. All of this freely given." Nodded, looking pleased. "Yes, and the Council appreciates your service." "Service," repeated the word slowly. "That's an interesting choice, because servants can leave their employment when they are not valued." The chairman's smile faded. "What are you saying?" Pulled out a small device and projected a hologram into the air. Legal text appeared, floating above the council floor in 50 different languages. "I am invoking Article 47 of the Galactic Charter. Humanity officially withdraws from the Galactic Council, effective immediately. We will remove all human personnel, assets, and technology from Council space within 30 standard days." Chaos erupted. Aliens jumped to their feet, shouting in dozens of languages. The translation system struggled to keep up with the noise. Chairman slammed his fist on his desk, demanding order. "You cannot be serious," he said when the chamber finally quieted. "You need the Council. Where will you trade? Who will protect you?" Smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Protect us? Chairman, human ships protect your borders. Human engineers maintain your infrastructure. Human doctors staff your hospitals. Human scientists drive your research forward. And in return, we receive 1 vote out of 50, the same as species that contribute nothing. We are tired of being taken for granted." "This is madness," said. "You'll fail without us. You'll come crawling back within a year begging to rejoin." Perhaps, said, or perhaps you'll discover what happens when the people who actually do the work decide to stop working for you. She turned to address the entire council. We came to you in peace. We shared everything we had. We asked only for basic respect and equal treatment. Instead, you called us mechanics and soldiers as if those were insults. You forgot something important. Mechanics know how everything works, and soldiers know how to win. Jin watched as the realization slowly spread through the chamber. Some council members looked worried. Others looked angry. A few, like Ara of the delegation, looked sad and regretful. Continued, we leave you with your ancient technology, your political games, and your arrogance. Good luck maintaining the relay network you don't understand. Good luck defending borders without our fleets. Good luck curing diseases without our medical knowledge. You wanted to make the important decisions yourselves. Now you can. She gathered her documents and walked toward the exit. Jin and Doctor followed her, along with the other human delegates. Behind them, the council chamber erupted in argument again. Aliens shouted at each other, trying to figure out what to do. As they reached the door, called out, "You'll regret this, Ambassador." Paused and looked back over her shoulder. "No, Chairman, you'll regret this. We'll be fine. The question is, will you?" The door closed behind them with a soft hiss. Jin let out a long breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "That was brutal," he said. "It needed to be," replied. "We gave them 200 years, we were patient, we were generous, and they never stopped treating us like servants." She looked at Jin and, "Send the evacuation orders. Every human in council space comes home. Every ship, every station, every research outpost. We're done here." Doctor nodded. "The FTL relay network will start failing within weeks without our maintenance teams." "I know," said, "that's their problem now." As they walked toward their shuttle, Jin couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. The council had made a terrible mistake. They had forgotten a simple truth that humans had learned long ago. Never take for granted the people who keep your world running, because someday they might just stop. And then you'll discover how much you really needed them. Commander Park stood on the bridge of the human battleship Indomitable, watching the evacuation coordinates scroll across his screen. 23 military stations, 47 defensive outposts, and 162 patrol routes. All of them had to be abandoned within 30 days. It was the largest military withdrawal in human history. "Sir, the Outer Defense Fleet is requesting confirmation," his communications officer said. "They want to know if we're really leaving the border undefended." Nodded, "Tell them yes, pull back all ships. If the Council wants border security, they can provide it themselves." The officer hesitated. "Sir, they have sent multiple messages. They're afraid. Without our ships, pirates will attack within days." "Not our problem anymore," said, though the words tasted bitter in his mouth. He had spent 15 years protecting these borders. He knew every weak point, every pirate route, every hiding spot raiders used. But the Council had made their choice. They didn't value human protection. Now they would learn what it cost to lose it. Across the galaxy, the same scene played out hundreds of times. Human soldiers packed their equipment and boarded transports. Defensive shields powered down. Sensor arrays went dark. Within 72 hours, the first pirate attack hit a colony world. The local defense force, poorly trained and badly equipped, was overwhelmed in minutes. The colony fell. 3 more attacks followed in the next week. Engineer Myra walked through the central relay station for the last time. She had worked here for 8 years, keeping the ancient FTL network running. The technology was old, built by a species that had gone extinct thousands of years ago. Nobody understood how it really worked anymore. Nobody except humans. Her team had spent decades studying the relays, learning their secrets through trial and error. They had created maintenance protocols, repair techniques, and diagnostic systems. They had kept the network functional when Council engineers said it was impossible. Now she was leaving, and taking all that knowledge with her. Myra, the backup drives are loaded, her assistant said. All our research, all our maintenance logs, everything. Good, Myra said. Wipe the local databases. The council wanted us gone. We're taking our work with us. But without this information, the relays will start failing. Yes, Myra said quietly, they will. She initiated the deletion sequence and watched years of human research disappear from council systems. It felt wrong, like burning books. But this was knowledge humans had created, discovered, and documented. If the council didn't value the people who created it, they didn't deserve to keep it. The first relay malfunction occurred 9 days after the humans left. A minor error in the system caused a 3-hour delay in FTL traffic. Council engineers tried to fix it using old manuals, but they didn't understand the underlying principles. The error spread to neighboring systems. Journey times doubled, then tripled. Dr. Binge sat in his office at the Galactic Research Institute, organizing his personal files. Around him, other human scientists did the same. They moved quietly, efficiently, taking everything they had contributed. The institute director, unnamed, appeared in the doorway. Doctor, please, don't do this. Your quantum mechanics research is revolutionary. It belongs to the galaxy. Bin looked up from his work. My research belongs to me, Director. I shared it freely with the Council because I believed in cooperation and mutual advancement. But respect must go both ways. We do respect you. Really? Bin gestured to his sparse office. I've won 3 Galactic Science Awards. I've published 47 breakthrough papers. And my office is half the size of junior researchers from elder species who have achieved nothing. My pay is lower. My vote in institute decisions counts for less. Don't talk to me about respect. Wrung his hands together. But your work on dimensional physics is mine, Bin said firmly. The council called us mechanics and soldiers. Fine, but mechanics take their tools when they leave, and soldiers take their weapons. He initiated a complete purge of his research from the institute databases. 20 years of work gone in seconds. Around the building, other human scientists did the same. Medical research, engineering breakthroughs, agricultural innovations, all deleted. If the council wanted human knowledge, they should have treated humans better. Engineer Song was the last human to leave station. She walked through the empty corridors, checking systems one final time. Not to maintain them, just to confirm they were all running. What happened after she left wasn't her responsibility anymore. Her communicator buzzed constantly. Messages from council officials begging her to stay. Offers of higher pay, better positions, more authority. She ignored them all. Some things couldn't be fixed with money. 200 years of disrespect couldn't be erased with a promotion. This is Chairman, the latest message said. I order you to remain at your post. The council needs you. She recorded a simple reply. The council should have thought of that before insulting us. Good luck, Chairman, you'll need it. She boarded the last human transport and watched station shrink in the. Somewhere in that massive structure, systems were already starting to fail. Small things at first, temperature controls, water recycling, air filtration, nothing critical yet. But without human maintenance, those small problems would become big ones. Commander received reports from across Council space. The news was uniformly bad, at least for the Council. Pirate raids had increased 400%. 6 colony worlds had fallen. Trade routes were disrupted by relay failures. A plague had broken out on the same disease that human doctors had eradicated 50 years ago. Sir, we're receiving hundreds of messages from Council worlds, his communications officer reported. They're begging us to return, offering anything we want. Forward them to Ambassador said. She'll handle the political side. What about the children? The officer asked quietly. I'm seeing reports of civilian casualties from the pirate raids. Kids, sir. Closed his eyes. This was the hard part. He wanted to help. Every human did. But if they ran back at the first sign of trouble, nothing would change. The council would continue taking them for granted. Sometimes you had to let people face the consequences of their choices, even when those consequences hurt innocent people. "It's not our fault those children are in danger," he said. "It's the council's fault. They're the ones who drove us away with their arrogance. Maybe watching their people suffer will teach them something about respect." Captain Jin stood on Earth, watching the last transport ships arrive. Thousands of humans returning home from Council space, carrying their tools, their research, and their wounded pride. The evacuation was complete. For the first time in 2 centuries, no humans served the Galactic Council. Ambassador stood beside him. "Chairman sent another message today," she said. "He's demanding we return and fulfill our obligations." "What obligations?" Jin asked. "Exactly what I told him," smiled. "We had no contracts, no treaties binding us to serve the Council. Everything we did was voluntary. Everything we gave was a gift. And you can't demand someone keep giving you gifts." "How long do you think they'll last?" Looked up at the stars. "Without our maintenance, the infrastructure will fail completely within 6 months. Without our military, their borders are already collapsing. Without our research and medical knowledge," she shook her head. "They'll suffer, people will die, and I hate that. But we gave them 200 years of our best efforts and they treated us like servants. At some point you have to walk away." "What if they change?" Jin asked. "What if they finally learn to respect us?" "Then maybe we'll talk," said. "But on our terms, as equals, never again as servants." They watched the ships landing, bringing humanity home. The galaxy would have to learn to function without them, or collapse trying. 3 months had passed since the humans left. Chairman sat in his office, staring at reports that got worse every day. The holo display showed a map of Council space, with red warning indicators spreading like a disease. 27 systems are now completely isolated, his aide reported. The FTL relay network has degraded beyond repair in those sectors. Travel time to the core systems has increased from 3 days to 4 months using conventional drives. Slammed his fist on the desk. "How is this possible? The relays are ancient technology, but they're reliable. They've worked for thousands of years." "They worked because humans maintained them, sir," the aide said carefully. "Our engineers have tried to replicate human repair procedures, but we don't understand the underlying systems. Every fix we attempt makes things worse." The chairman pulled up another report. This one showed military losses. In 3 months, the Council had lost 12 worlds to pirate raids and hostile species. Entire colonies conquered or destroyed. The death toll was in the millions. "What about the defense fleet? We have ships, we have weapons." "We have ships without human tactical coordination, sir. And we're discovering that our weapon systems relied heavily on human-designed targeting algorithms and maintenance protocols. Our combat effectiveness has dropped by 70%. Wanted to scream. How had they missed this? How had the entire Council failed to realize how dependent they were on human expertise? Ara entered his office without knocking. The diplomat looked exhausted. "Chairman, the medical situation is critical. The plague on Yor has spread to 16 cities, 30,000 dead so far." "Send more doctors," said. "We don't have enough doctors," Ara said. "Most of our medical staff were human. The ones who remain don't know how to treat this disease. Human doctors eliminated it 50 years ago, but they took their treatment protocols with them." "Then we'll research a cure ourselves." "With what research base?" Ara asked. "Human scientists drove 90% of our medical advances. They took all their data when they left. We're trying to reinvent treatments that they created decades ago and were failing. People are dying, thousands every day." The chairman stood and walked to the window. Outside, he could see the Galactic Council building, that beautiful symbol of unity and cooperation. It was crumbling now, just like everything else. Power outages were becoming common. The environmental systems fluctuated. Nobody could fix them properly anymore. "Send a message to the humans," he said. "Tell them we need their help." "I've sent 50 messages," Ara said quietly. "Ambassador doesn't even open them anymore. The last response we received was from Captain Jin. He said, and I quote, 'You called us mechanics. Now fix your own machines.'" Engineer Song sat in her comfortable apartment on Earth, watching the news broadcasts from Council Space. The reports were everywhere. Infrastructure collapse, military defeats, medical emergencies. The galactic civilization was falling apart. Her communicator received another message from Council Space. She glanced at it. An engineer she had trained years ago, begging for help with a relay station malfunction. He offered money, resources, anything she wanted. She deleted the message without responding. She had received hundreds like it. Former colleagues, desperate officials, even ordinary citizens who had somehow gotten her contact information. All of them wanted human help. None of them seemed to understand why that help was no longer available. Her friend sat across from her, watching the same broadcasts. "Do you ever feel guilty?" he asked. "All those people suffering." "Every day," said. "But guilt won't make me go back. They had 200 years to treat us with respect. They chose arrogance instead. Now they're paying the price." The news says there are food shortages in some sectors. Human-maintained agricultural systems are failing. "Those systems came with maintenance manuals," said, "written in simple language so anyone could understand. But council engineers ignored them. They assumed they knew better than the simple humans who designed the systems. Now they're watching their crops die." A council spokesperson was giving a press conference. "We are confident that we will overcome these temporary difficulties," the alien said. "The council has survived for thousands of years. We will adapt." Laughed bitterly. "They still don't get it. This isn't temporary. Their entire civilization was built on human labor, human knowledge, and human goodwill. Take that away and there's nothing left." Meanwhile, in the void sector, something was stirring. Captain Jin had warned the council about unusual energy readings in that region. He had urged caution, investigation, careful study. The council had laughed at him and declared their intention to colonize the sector immediately. They never got the chance. The infrastructure collapse made expansion impossible. But the entities in the void sector didn't care about council politics or human warnings. They had been waiting, watching, growing stronger, and now they sensed weakness. The first breach occurred near the system. A tier in normal space, like reality itself, was ripping open. Things emerged from the breach. Not ships, not anything recognizable. Energy beings, perhaps, or something from another dimension entirely. Scouts called them the Void Swarm before the scouts were consumed. The swarm moved through space like locusts through a field. They consumed everything. Ships, stations, even planets. They didn't conquer or occupy. They simply destroyed and moved on to the next target. The Council fleet engaged them near 50 warships, the pride of the Council Navy. The battle lasted 11 minutes. The fleet was annihilated, not defeated, erased. Not a single ship survived to report what happened. In the council chamber, panic replaced arrogance. Species representatives shouted at each other, trying to assign blame. Some wanted to flee council space entirely. Others demanded someone find a solution, though they had no idea what that solution might be. "We need the humans," Ara said during an emergency session. "They're the only ones who might understand this threat. Their research into dimensional physics was decades ahead of ours." "Never," Chairman said. "I will not go crawling to those arrogant primates. We are the elder species. We will find our own solution." "What solution?" Ara demanded. "Our scientists can't even understand the energy readings from the void sector. The humans could. They warned us this would happen and we laughed at them. Our pride has killed billions. How many more must die before you admit we need them?" But the chairman refused. He sent the Council's remaining scientists to study the problem. They worked desperately, trying to understand the void swarm, but all their research on dimensional physics had come from human scientists. Without that foundation, they couldn't even begin to comprehend what they were facing. The swarm continued its advance. 3 more systems fell, then 5, then 10. Refugee ships fled before the advancing threat, only to find that the FTL relay network couldn't handle the traffic. Ships were stranded in deep space, waiting days or weeks for relays to become available. Dr. Lee watched the reports from her laboratory on Earth. She saw the death toll rising. She saw civilizations that had stood for crumbling in weeks. And she saw the void swarm, the very threat she and Captain had warned about, consuming everything in its path. "We could stop them," she said to Ambassador during a video conference. "My research team was working on dimensional stabilization technology. We could seal those breaches, contain the swarm." "I know," said, "but we're not going back as servants. If the Council wants our help, they'll have to ask properly, and they'll have to agree to real changes." "How many will die while we wait?" "I don't know," said, and her voice was heavy with sadness. "But how many humans were killed over 2 centuries because the Council wouldn't listen to our warnings or value our expertise? This swarm invasion is happening precisely because they ignored our advice about the void sector. At some point, people have to face the consequences of their decisions." Chairman finally received a report that broke through his denial. The void swarm had reached the colonial worlds. His species' most important territories were under attack. At the current rate of advance, the swarm would reach them in 6 months. He sat alone in his office, staring at the invasion projections. His pride had done this. His arrogance had brought his entire civilization to the brink of extinction, and the only people who could save them were the ones he had insulted and dismissed. Ara entered his office. "I'm organizing a delegation to Earth," she said. "With or without your permission, we're going to beg the humans for help." Said nothing for a long moment, then quietly, "I'll go with you." The Council delegation's ship approached Earth through a military checkpoint that hadn't existed 6 months ago. Human warships surrounded the system now, sleek and powerful. Ara noticed immediately that these ships looked different from the ones that had left Council space. Faster, more advanced. Humans had been busy. "They've upgraded their entire fleet," her aide whispered. "Those are weapon systems we've never seen before." Chairman said nothing. He stared at Earth through this world he had always dismissed as young and insignificant. It looked different now, stronger, more confident. Around it floated dozens of orbital stations, all new construction. Humanity wasn't just surviving without the Council. They were thriving. The human escort brought them to a landing platform in Geneva. As they disembarked, Ara saw human soldiers everywhere. Not the scattered defense forces they had contributed to Council space, but a real military. Organized, disciplined, and very well equipped. President Han met them in a conference room. She was younger than Ara expected, perhaps 50 by human years. She wore a simple suit and showed no expression as the Council delegation entered. "President Han," Ara began, "thank you for agreeing to see us." "I almost didn't," said. "You've sent hundreds of messages over the past months. I've ignored most of them. Why should I listen now?" Ara took a deep breath. What she was about to do would humiliate her species, destroy her political career, and anger many Council members. But it was the only way. She dropped to her knees on the floor. The humans in the room looked shocked. In Council culture, kneeling was the ultimate gesture of submission and shame. Leaders never knelt, ever. "We were wrong," Ara said. "We were arrogant fools who mistook age for wisdom and technology for strength. We treated you like servants when you were the pillars holding our civilization together. Now that civilization is collapsing and billions will die because of our pride. We don't deserve your help, but I'm begging for it anyway. Not for myself, for the innocent people who are dying." Chairman remained standing for a long moment. Then, slowly, he knelt beside Ara. The other council delegates followed. Within seconds, the entire delegation was on their knees before the human president. Studied them carefully. "Stand up," she said finally. "Humans don't make people kneel." They rose awkwardly, looked at with something in his eyes that might have been shame. The Void Swarm has consumed 43 systems. At the current rate, it will reach the Council core worlds in 4 months. Our fleets can't stop it. Our scientists can't even understand it. We need your help. "You need our help," repeated. "Interesting. 3 months ago, you said you didn't need us at all." "I was wrong. You called us mechanics and soldiers. You laughed at our warnings. You treated our people like they were beneath you." His voice remained calm, but there was steel in it. "Why should we risk human lives to save a council that never valued those lives?" Admiral Wu entered the room before anyone could answer. The military commander looked at the council delegation with unconcealed disdain. He placed a data pad on the table in front of President. "Latest casualty reports from the swarm invasion," he said. 2 billion dead so far. Projected casualties if the swarm reaches the core worlds, 50 billion. The council delegates looked sick. 50 billion lives, almost half their total population. "We can stop them," Admiral Wu continued. "Our research into dimensional physics has advanced significantly in the past 6 months. Dr. Li's team has developed weapons that can disrupt the swarm entities. We have the technology to seal the breaches in space. We can save the Council." "Then why haven't you?" demanded. Wu looked at him coldly. "Because you never asked us properly. Because you still think you're entitled to our help. You're not. Every time a human saves an alien life, that's a choice, a gift, not an obligation." President held up her hand. "Admiral, that's enough." She turned to the council delegation. "My cabinet is divided. Some want revenge. Some want to watch you fall and let you learn a harsh lesson. But that's not who we are. We didn't leave the council because we're petty or cruel. We left because we were tired of being used. However, we're still human. We still save people when we can. That's what defines us." She pulled up a holographic document. "These are my terms. The Galactic Council will be dissolved. Immediately. A new organization will form called the Galactic Alliance. Humans will be founding members with veto power over any major decisions. All species will have representation proportional to their actual contributions, not their age or their history, but what they actually do. No species will ever be second-class citizens again. Every member will be treated as an equal, and that equality will be enforced." Ara nodded immediately. "Agreed." "I'm not finished," said. "Human military forces will have command authority over all Alliance fleets, not because we're superior, but because we've proven we know what we're doing. If you want us to save you, you'll follow our orders without question. Human engineers will have final say on all infrastructure projects. Human scientists will lead research initiatives. This is non-negotiable." "You're asking us to give you control of everything," said. "No," corrected. "I'm offering to save your civilization in exchange for being treated as equals. You can reject these terms. Keep your council, keep your pride, and face the swarm alone. But if you accept that humans are not your servants, not your mechanics, not your soldiers. We're your partners, your equals, and sometimes your leaders." The council delegation looked at each other. Ara saw the calculation in their eyes. Surrender their authority or watch their civilizations die. "We accept," Ara said. Looked at her in shock. "You can't make that decision alone." "Then you make it, Chairman. Choose pride or survival." Was silent for a long time. Finally, in a voice that was barely a whisper, he said, "We accept your terms." Stood Admiral Wu, "Mobilize the fleet. Dr. Li and her team will coordinate with our military commanders. Captain Jin will take overall command of the Alliance forces. We have 4 months to stop the swarm before it reaches the core worlds. Let's get to work." As the meeting ended, approached President. "Why are you helping us, after everything we did?" Looked at him with something that might have been pity. "Because we're human, Chairman, we help people, even people who hurt us, even people who don't deserve it. That's not weakness. That's strength. It's a lesson you should have learned 200 years ago." 3 days later, the human fleet departed for Council space. 200 warships, all equipped with new technology that made Council vessels look like ancient relics. Aboard the flagship Unity, Admiral Wu addressed the combined human and alien crews. "We're going to war," he said. "Not for conquest or glory. We're fighting to protect innocent lives. The Council leadership failed their people, but those people don't deserve to die for that failure. So we're going to save them. And we're going to win, because that's what humans do." Captain Jin stood beside him, looking at the tactical displays. The Void Swarm controlled 43 systems and was advancing steadily. It was a seemingly impossible task, but Jin had learned something in his years of service. Humans specialized in impossible tasks. "Set course for the swarm front," he ordered. "Maximum speed. And someone send a message to the Council worlds. Tell them help is coming. Tell them the humans are back. And this time we're not asking for permission." The fleet jumped to FTL, leaving Earth behind. Ahead of them lay the greatest threat the galaxy had ever faced. Behind them lay a civilization that had finally learned to respect them. Engineer Myra sat in the engine room of the Unity, making final adjustments to the dimensional stabilizer. This device was her masterwork, technology that the Council had declared impossible. It could seal the breaches in space that the Void Swarm used to enter normal reality. "Will it work?" her assistant asked. "It will work," Myra said confidently. "The Council couldn't build this because they never understood dimensional physics, but we do. We spent decades studying it while they laughed at our theories. Now our impossible theories are going to save their entire civilization." She activated the device and watched the reading stabilize. Perfect. The swarm had no idea what was coming. They had terrorized a complacent, arrogant council that had grown weak over, but now they would face something different. They would face humanity, and humanity was done being underestimated. The human fleet arrived at the swarm front to find chaos. 3 council battle groups were retreating in disorder, their formations broken, their ships damaged. The void entities pursued them like predators chasing wounded prey. Energy beings that looked like tears in reality itself, consuming everything they touched. Fleet Admiral Jin watched the disaster unfold on his tactical display. He had been promoted from captain 3 days ago, given command of the entire Alliance military force. Now he had to prove that faith was justified. "All ships battle formation Delta," he ordered calmly. "Human vessels take point. Council ships fall back to support positions. Weapons free on my mark." The human fleet moved with precision that made the fleeing Council ships look like amateurs. They formed a defensive wall between the swarm and the retreating aliens. The Council captains watched in amazement as human warships positioned themselves perfectly, overlapping fields of fire, supporting each other. "Sir, we're receiving panic communications from the Council vessels," the communications officer reported. "They're asking what we're doing. They say running is the only option." "Tell them to watch and learn," Jin said. "All ships fire." The human fleet opened fire simultaneously. But these weren't the weapons the Council remembered. These were new, designed specifically to fight the void entities. Quantum disruptors that could tear apart beings made of pure energy, dimensional anchors that could seal breaches in reality. The swarm entities that had seemed unstoppable suddenly found themselves dying. The first volley destroyed 6 entities. The second destroyed 8 more. Within 3 minutes, the pursuing swarm force was completely eliminated. On the Council ships, crews stared at their screens in disbelief. The monsters that had destroyed 50 of their warships had been wiped out by human vessels in minutes. Admiral Jin opened a channel to all Council ships in the area. This is Fleet Admiral Jin of the Human Federation. All Council vessels will now follow human tactical direction. We're not asking, we're ordering. You will do exactly as we say when we say it. If you can't follow orders, return to your, we don't have time for amateurs. Some Council captains bristled at the tone, but most were simply grateful to be alive. They had watched human forces do in 3 minutes what they couldn't do in 3 months. Pride was a luxury they could no longer afford. Over the next 6 weeks, the war turned. Human fleets engaged the swarm across a dozen systems, winning battle after battle. It wasn't easy. The fighting was brutal, and humans died along with the aliens they protected. But humans understood warfare in a way the Council never had. Every victory came from careful planning, superior technology, and the willingness to sacrifice when necessary. Dr. Lee worked around the clock in her mobile laboratory, deployed near the front lines. Her team had developed the weapons that were killing the swarm entities. Now they worked on the bigger problem, sealing the dimensional breaches permanently. The mathematics are complex, she explained to Admiral Wu during a briefing. The swarm is entering our reality through tears in the dimensional fabric. These tiers formed because the Council destabilized the region with their exploration attempts, just like Captain Jin warned them. Can you seal the breaches? Wu asked. Yes, but it requires deploying dimensional anchors at specific coordinates throughout the void sector. It's dangerous. Ships will have to enter the most unstable region of space and hold position while the anchors activate. How dangerous? Meta's eyes, 60% casualty rate, may be higher. Wu nodded grimly. Find me volunteers, you'll have your ships. The call went out across the fleet. They needed crews willing to take a suicide mission into the heart of the void sector. The response was immediate. 300 human ships volunteered within an hour. Another 100 Council vessels joined them, their crews having learned courage from their human commanders. Engineer Myra commanded one of the anchor deployment ships. She piloted the vessel Perseverance into the void sector alongside the other volunteers. Around them, space itself seemed wrong. Reality bent and twisted. Readings on the instruments made no sense. Deploying anchor in 3 minutes, she reported. All systems nominal. The swarm knew what they were attempting. Entities poured through the breaches, trying to stop the deployment. The escort ships fought them off, but the cost was terrible. Myra watched ships she had served with die protecting her while she held position. 1 minute to deployment. Her ship shook as a swarm entity brushed against the shields. Alarms screamed. Hull integrity dropped to 40%, but she held her course. Anchor deployed, activating now. The dimensional anchor activated and space screamed. Reality itself seemed to fight the device for a moment. Then, suddenly, the breach began to close. The tier in dimensional fabric sealed itself, cutting off the swarm's entry point. Across the void sector, 200 other anchors activated simultaneously. One by one, the breaches closed. The swarm entities already in normal space found themselves cut off from reinforcements. Of the 400 ships that entered the void sector, only 217 returned. 183 crews gave their lives to seal the breaches. Myra's ship was among the survivors, barely. The Perseverance limped back to base with one engine, no shields, and half the crew dead or wounded. But it worked. The dimensional barrier held. The swarm was contained. With their reinforcements cut off, the remaining swarm entities were hunted down over the next 2 months. It was brutal work, but the combined alliance forces were relentless. Every entity was tracked and destroyed. No mercy was shown because none could be expected. The final battle took place near a massive swarm concentration had been moving toward the planet, intent on consuming it. Admiral Jin led the fleet personally to intercept them. Chairman watched from the surface as human ships threw themselves between his world and the swarm. He saw vessels sacrifice themselves to protect his people. He watched humans die for a civilization that had treated them with contempt. When the battle ended 12 hours later, the swarm force was destroyed, but the cost was severe. 23 human ships lost, 8,000 human lives, all to save the world that had insulted them most. Requested a communication with Admiral Jin. When the human appeared on his screen, bloody and exhausted from the battle, the chairman found he couldn't speak for a moment. "Thank you," he finally managed. "Your people saved my world." "We saved innocent people," Jin corrected. "Not because we like you, Chairman, not because you deserve it, but because it was the right thing to do. Maybe someday your species will understand the difference between power and strength, between age and wisdom, between ruling and leading." 8 months after the human exodus, the war was over. The swarm was contained and eliminated. The council was dissolved just as President had demanded. In its place, the Galactic Alliance held its first assembly on Earth. The new chamber was nothing like the old council room. There were no elevated seats for elder species, no hierarchy based on age or tradition. Every species sat as equals. Votes were weighted by contribution, and humanity's contributions had earned them substantial influence. Ambassador addressed the assembly for the first time. "We gather here not as rulers and servants, but as partners. The old ways nearly destroyed galactic civilization. We will not repeat those mistakes. Every species here brings something valuable. Every voice will be heard. But understand this: respect must be earned and equality must be genuine. The moment this alliance forgets that lesson, it will fail just like the council did." After the formal assembly, a smaller ceremony took place. A memorial was being built on Earth, honoring all who died in the war against the swarm. Humans and aliens, their names carved together in stone. Former chairman attended the ceremony. He was no longer chairman of anything. The council was gone, and his own people had voted him out of office for his role in the disaster. He stood before the memorial, looking at the human names. Ambassador found him there. "Chairman," she said quietly. "Not anymore," he replied. "Just now, a retired politician whose arrogance nearly destroyed everything." "Why did you come here?" "To remember," he said. "To make sure I never forget what my pride cost. 8,000 humans died saving my world. People I had insulted, dismissed, underestimated. They saved us anyway." Was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "You asked me once why we came back, why we helped you after everything the council did to us. I remember. I told you it was because we're human. That's true, but it's not complete. We came back because we believe in something the council forgot. We believe that civilization only works when people help each other, respect each other, value each other. Not because they have to, because they choose to." "Your species is better than mine," said softly. "No," corrected. "We're just different. You have gifts we don't have, but you forgot that different gifts have different values. You thought age and tradition made you superior. You learned the hard way that the mechanic who fixes your ship is just as important as the captain who commands it, maybe more important." Looked at her. "What happens now?" "Now we rebuild, together, as equals. And if anyone ever forgets the lessons we learned, we have this memorial to remind them." The ceremony ended as the sun set over Earth. Representatives from 50 species stood together, watching the sky. For the first time in galactic history, they stood not as a hierarchy but as partners. In the distance, human ships patrolled the system, not as servants, not as mechanics or soldiers, as leaders earned through sacrifice and proven through competence. The galaxy had learned a simple truth: never take for granted the people who keep your world running, because someday they might stop. And when they do, you'll discover you needed them far more than they ever needed you. But there was a second truth, equally important. Those same people, if they're truly strong, will come back when you need them most, not because you deserve it, but because helping others, even those who wronged you, is what separates civilization from chaos. Humanity had walked away, the galaxy had collapsed, humanity had returned, the galaxy had survived. And everyone involved would remember these lessons for generations to come. On the memorial's base, a simple inscription had been carved. They walked away when disrespected. They returned when needed. They saved those who scorned them. This is the measure of true strength.